In part 2 of the spinning target tutorial, we will make an assembly of all of our parts using mate tools. The first step will be to click on the Assembly tab. And first I'll point out, I talked about that we will be using mate tools. Right here are the different kinds of mates to put parts together. There's the Fastened Mate, Revolute, Slider, Planer, Cylindrical, Pin Slot, Ball, and Parallel. And if we hadn't added mate connectors earlier, you can add mate connectors at this point in your 3D design. So let's insert the parts from our Part Studio. So click Insert, and from Part Studio 1, we need Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4. And click in the workspace to set them down, and go ahead and close that dialog box. If you need to move parts out of the way, just go ahead, click on them to select. This manipulator will appear, and notice you can drag them out of the way. If you want to change the way they are rotated in space, you can do that as well. And then just click in an empty area to deselect. Say if I wanted to move this one out of the way, I can go ahead and slide it. Or you can click and drag in the center as well. Next, we'll want to fix one of the legs. So we'll right-click on one of the parts and choose Fix. That will hold it in place so that we can't grab it and slide it around. So here's the mate connector, and we would like to connect this rod to that. And we want this to be fastened in place. We will use, and it won't have any degrees of freedom. It won't turn or slide. So click on the Fastened Mate. And here we need to choose 2 mate connectors. So we've got this one that we added. And on the rod, we will use one of the implicit mate connectors that defaults to the center of this face. So click that as the second mate. And you can zoom out to see that. Let's go ahead and flip the axis because it was going in the wrong direction for us. So that looks correct. So go ahead and close that dialog box. Now we will use another Fastened Mate to connect this leg to the rod. So choose the Fastened Mate. Zoom in. On the rod, we'll use the implicit mate connector that's already there. That's our first connector. And we'll zoom out, and I like to zoom in to make sure I'm choosing the intended mate connector, and that one. Let's zoom out and see if they got connected correctly. That looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and close that dialog box. Now we need to add the spinner onto the rod. So for this one, we will be using this cylindrical mate, because notice that it will rotate about this axis, and it will also slide back and forth along that axis. So let's choose cylindrical mate, and we can use the implicit mate connector that's there at the center of that cylinder. And I'm going to zoom out and rotate and go to the rod, and notice we can choose this connector that's in the center of the rod as the second. Okay, we zoom out. There it is. That looks good. Okay, notice we can move this. If I click and drag, you can see how it slides on that axis, but you can't move it. You can't slide it in another direction, but notice that it will rotate. Again, you can click and drag, and you see how it spins on that axis. You can spin it around. And yes, you can spin it right off the part. And you have made your spinning target. You may have noticed that the legs of our spinning target are identical. So in reality, it was not necessary to make both of them. Let's add a second assembly, and I will demonstrate that we can just go ahead and add part 1 twice, and then we'll add part 3 and part 4, and it will work just fine. After inserting the parts and moving anything you need out of the way to make your life simpler, right-click on one of the legs to fix it in space, and we'll go ahead and again, we're going to fasten the rod to the fixed leg. Oops. And let's go ahead. We're going to need to edit that. It went in the wrong direction. Okay, that looks better. And now we will connect it. Let's go ahead and rotate that 180 degrees. And a fastened mate. Select that. And that. Save. All right, now the cylindrical mate. And click and drag. And there you go.